Hello there, and welcome to another Why You Lost, the series where you send me your multiplayer replays and I tell you why the hell you lost it. This one was sent to me by community member Skullkid, and he's playing another community member, Red Dead Redemption. And this is actually Skullkid's first ever multiplayer battle. He saw my video of why you should try multiplayer, and he's given it a crack. He's playing as the vampire counts against Bordelot. Ted likes to play only sub-factions. It's a bit of a joke in the Discord that he only ever plays sub-factions. He refuses to play main factions for whatever reason, but fair play because they do have limited rosters. Skullkid has a front line of 5 units of spearmen, skeleton spearmen. Pretty crappy infantry overall. They're anti-large, but they're not very good at that job either. They're just kind of there to hold the line a bit. Bretonnian infantry though, not of course too much to worry about. He's also brought some big stuff to the party, a Terrorgeist. He's got his Lord, the Red Duke, on a zombie dragon. So 2 big air units, dangerous stuff. Also got some bats, probably to harass those missiles. Got a Necromancer on a corpse cart. I believe the Unholy Lodestone one, so he's going to get some regeneration. 2 units of Blood Knights, big powerful cavalry. Could take on the old Bretonnian cavalry. And then 2 units of Direwolves, good for flanking round and munching on archers if they can get there. So that's Skullkid's army. Not a bad army overall for his first multiplayer battle. I don't know whether he had some help with it or whether it's entirely his own creation, but it's not a bad build by any means. Ted coming with the Bretonnian infantry, a bunch of unit of men-at-arms upgraded to silver chevron, so they're a little bit better than normal. Also got some archers, peasant bowmen of fire, good against those regenerating vampire units of course. A couple of units of spearmen at the back just to protect them and probably deal with any of the large stuff that the vampires may throw his way. Also got a paladin to support this front line, and the Grail Reliquae to also bring up the leadership of all those units. So that's the main part of his army. And then off to his right, he's got 3 units of cavalry, Knights of the Realm. So not going all out on the cav, going more for the numbers with 3 units of fairly decent cav. Not quite Grail Knights, but they can certainly do some work. He's also got a unit of Hippogriffs, a very dangerous flying cavalry. They can be pretty versatile in who they go after. His Lord is Alberic on a Griffin, so he's going to be flying around all over the place. He is anti-large, so he can take on that Vampire Lord potentially. Also got a Damsel of Life, probably for healing up all this stuff on his right side. So that is both of their armies. Let's see how they advance and how this one plays out and why the hell Skullkid lost it. Because sometimes things happen in battles and you don't realize what's happened, and especially if you're new to the game and you don't understand all the matchups and things, you can wonder, well, why did I lose this battle? What did I do wrong? Well, hopefully we will be able to identify it. He's got some Direwolves here, squared up with those Knights of the Realm. That is a bad matchup for his Direwolves. He's got 2 units of Blood Knights here, though, bringing them over by the looks of it. Ready, maybe, to go after those Knights of the Realm. That is a good matchup for the Blood Knights. I reckon they could probably crump 3 units of Knights of the Realm if they hit him with a big charge. Fire arrows coming in, though, on the Skeleton Spearmen. I'd have to say, though, that the Skeleton Spearman front line is a bit questionable because they have such low damage output, even against Bretonnians. He may have been better off with some regular skeletons instead of the Spearmen, but I guess he was expecting lots of calves, so he felt like he needed the Spearmen. Knights of the Realm, though, moving up on Skullkid's left side, meeting his Direwolves, and here's going to be his first mistake. He's going to charge his Direwolves into these Knights of the Realm. This is a horrendously bad matchup for the Direwolves. They're not tough at all. They don't want to take any charges. They need to avoid charges at all costs, especially from a fairly beefy cavalry like Knights of the Realm. So what he should have done here is pulled these Direwolves away because these are really here to come after the archers. That's who they can munch down. His 2 units of Blood Knights here, though, they can take on the Knights of the Realm. They'll be able to mess a Knights of the Realm unit up pretty comfortably. There is 3 to 2, but I still would say maybe the advantage is Blood Knights with a bit of support from the Lord and Invocation of Nehek. You can see these Direwolves are getting thoroughly smashed and they're starting to crumble away. Blood Knights are coming over though, but they're in a bit of a thin formation. They want to be more something like this wide so that they can wrap around the enemy unit a bit more when they charge in. Otherwise they're just kind of charging into the back of each other and not really getting any damage done. They want to be more like this unit is, then they would have wrapped round. In the air we've got the Red Duke thrown down with Alberic and the Hippogriffs. This isn't a great matchup. He did say that he meant to put his Terrorgeist into this fight, but he accidentally clicked his Terrorgeist to fight the Knights of the Realm below. So just a bit of a micro error here. You can see the Terrorgeist down here getting into these Knights of the Realm, but he could be up there fighting those large targets. As he is anti-large, he'll do well munching on Alberic or munching on those Hippogriffs and helping out his Lord up there, who is taking a bit of a pounding. His regeneration saving him right now, but still, if he stays there, he's gonna get dead. As expected though, the Blood Knights have made short work of some of these Knights of the Realm, some of them getting flesh to stone there, helping them out. He's corrected his mistake here and got his Terrorgeist into that fight with the Lord to try and help him out. The front lines have clashed. These spearmen, they're not really going to do a lot. They're not going to get through these men-at-arms. They don't have enough damage output. They need some support. So he really needs to get some flanking around the back with those cavalries to try and help it out. He spawned up some zombies on the archers, which is a good move to try and get them tangled up. He's got his bats tangling up the other one. So some good use of controlling those missiles a little bit, but without any support for those skeleton spearmen, they're not really going to do anything because they just don't have any damage output really. So at this point, he needs to put all focus on getting rid of that last bit of cavalry, keeping his lord alive because he is taking a fair old pounding now, but he is beating the crap out of Alberic, so it's a fairly even trade. He is going to get his lord out of there, give him some time to regen. He has plenty of regen left. He can get him near full health again. Alberic won't regen, so that's a kind of a winning battle for him. His lord is in a bit of trouble. He's going to come down, try to finish off these Knights of the Realm. Front lines, these archers have got themselves to safety. But you can see where these direwolves would have come in handy here. These two direwolves could have been munching on these archers, no problem. They could have even munched on this damsel and taken her out. Possibly. I'm not sure if they'd win that fight, but they do a lot of damage to her at least. Could have maybe been finished off by one of the big boys, but over here the lord is a crumbling. But Ted's made an error of his own here. He's charged after that Red Duke, trying to finish him off with Alberic, but in doing so, he's got himself tied up in a crowd of Blood Knights who are anti-large and would love nothing more than to poke Alberic dead. So that is what's happening. He's routing now. But I think he makes a bit of an error here, running away from the Lord. You see he's moved away from him. He should have kept one unit on him to try and finish him off and sent the other one over to try and help. The Terrorgeist thrown down with the Hippogriffs, but these two units have come over here. I'm not really sure why. They should be rushed over here as quick as possible to help the rest of his army because they are struggling. Skeleton Spearmen, as I say, they can hold for a fair while, but they're not going to really do any damage, and you need to help them out. You need these two Terrorgeisty units and the Blood Knights to come and do the work for you. He's chasing after Alberic with the Terrorgeist and with his lord, which is a little bit of a waste. He only needs one of them because Alberic's fairly beaten up. Alberic is going to waver here and come back. Ted isn't going to quite notice to get him out of there, though. But the Terrorgeist is coming. That should be enough to take out Alberic. He should be bringing his lord over to the front line to help out those skeleton spearmen. He's got the breath attacks, which he could use as well. But he's going heavily after the lord here. Ted isn't quite going to notice, which is going to get his lord again routed. And this, I think, is the third time that Alberic has routed. Maybe the second time. He's just routed twice there, but I think he routed earlier. I might be wrong. But if you rout a lord 3 times and then rout them again for a 4th time, they will shatter on that 4th time. So he could just let the lord run away and come back because he's so beaten up that as soon as he gets attacked by that Terrorgeist again, he's going to run away. Trying to get the breath attack on the lord, trying to finish him off. Probably not really worth it. It's okay sometimes to let the lord run away and come back. If you've got him so dead, it doesn't really matter if he comes back because as soon as he does, you just send your Terrorgeist after him and it'll finish him off. Here he comes helping out the front line now though, getting in those Blood Knight charges. This is what he needed to be doing about 3 minutes ago, but of course he had to deal with all that cav first. These Hippogriff Knights going after the Blood Knights. He could have maybe sandwiched them in there with both of his Blood Knights and taken them out, as they are anti-large. They might have got him. Ted's infantry though has mostly dealt with those spearmen and got rid of them. The flying units are coming over, but it's too little too late. Alberic has come back. He's still alive. But I think even if he had died, I think the Bretonnians would still be okay. They've still got their Grail Reliquary and their Paladin, both at full health. So they've got plenty of leadership to be spread around by these two. And that's going to keep those men-at-arms in the fight probably long enough to finish off these vampires as they are very depleted now. The Lord is nearly dead. The Terrorgeist is fairly beaten up. Blood Knights, one of them's okay, one of them's nearly dead, but he's just running out of juice. Can't quite get this finished. He's got the fire arrows shooting at his Lord now. Of course, he's regenerating, so he's going to feel that fiery weakness. But there we go. That is the most of it. So a good effort from Skull Kid, getting a charge on the archers here. This is just what he needed to be doing a few minutes ago, or at least if those dire wolves could have come and munched away on those archers, they would have got rid of them pretty quick, and then they could have come and helped with the front line. They could have munched on the men-at-arms a little bit, helping out those zombie spearmen. So it could have saved his dire wolves, but in doing so with his dire wolves and charging them into the Knights of the Realm, he did take away the charge bonus being used against the Blood Knights, so they kind of had a purpose there, but he could have done that with one unit and then sent the other one off to try and munch on archers, saving his Blood Knights the enemy charge, which would have been really helpful to their health to keep them alive. But I don't think I saw any healing coming in for those Blood Knights, which is something that you really need to do with expensive cavalry like that. Getting some Invocation of the Heck. Maybe you did, maybe I just missed it, but that's always a powerful strategy to keep your strongest units healed up. In this case, his Terrorgeist, his Lord, his Blood Knights. Keep Invocation of the Heck going on those rather than on those Skeleton Spearmen or anything, because, like I say, Skeleton Spearmen ain't gonna do scheisse. But a good game to both. Well played to Ted, taking the victory. Skull Kid putting up a reasonable fight though. For his first ever matchup, he just made a few mistakes that if he corrected those, he definitely could have had a good shot at this. Let's have a look at some of the kills and the damage values real quick. Some fine work for his Lord, the Red Duke, 2,000 out of him. A little bit from the Necromancer, he was doing the healing. The Skeleton Spearmen, as we can see, not a lot out of them. 100 or 200 at most. Blood Knights, 1,700, pretty good. 1,300. They are quite an expensive unit, so you probably would expect a little bit more than that. Than 1,300 anyway. Direwolves, of course, didn't get a lot done. Terrorgeist did 2,000. That's fairly nice. Making its money back at least. For Ted, Alberic didn't get any kills at all, but he did do 2,300's worth of damage, so nice work from him. Whoa, big 3,000 from those hippogriffs, putting in some big work. That was mostly taking out that lord and stuff, probably. Not much from those. A little bit from the men-at-arms. They were, of course, only fighting crappy spearmen. Some of the cav may have done alright. One of those archers did well. One of the cavs did alright as well. But let's go ahead and talk about the build of the vampires and what we maybe could have done to be better prepared for dealing with a Bretonnian faction there. So this is Skullkid's army as he had it, I believe, as much as what I can figure out from all his abilities and things that he had activated. So he had the Red Duke on the Zombie Dragon. A good call, I think, going for that air superiority. Can be a risky game against the Bretonnians because they've got a lot of good air units as well. He didn't have the Curse of Undeath because he didn't take any spells with this. He had everything else though, which I think is fine to take, especially El Scythe, one of his best abilities. But I think not taking any spells was a mistake. At least you should take Invocation of Nehek because that's healing, and then you can take Curse of Undeath, and that's a more bit of healing as well. And it's such an inexpensive spell. 6 magic, he could be healing up those Blood Knights, his Terrorgeist himself. That would have helped him out a lot in that battle. So I definitely say he should have taken at least Invocation of Nehek, if nothing else, just because of the extra heals that it could bring. Doesn't really need any of the items or anything. His Necromancer is the one who had the spells though. He had him on that Unholy Lodestone Corpse Guard, getting that healing for those spearmen. Not that they were really going to do much with it. For the spells, he had Invocation on his Necromancer, so he did bring it. He did have Raise Dead as well, as we saw, and he had Curse of Years, which personally I didn't really like this as a pick. I'm not sure this is a great spell. Vampire players, let me know. The only real useful thing here is the minus melee attack to the enemy, the minus of speed, and the minus ability recharge time. Never really seems that useful to me, so I probably would have lost that, saved myself the money. Even just Raise Dead and Invocation. It's all you really need half the time for the Vampire Lorebook. Just keep spamming out those heals, can be the best way to go. And then, as I mentioned, the Skeleton Spearman frontline I think was a bad call. He didn't really need the Spearman on the frontline. He brought Spearman, I assume, because he maybe thought he was going to have to deal with the cavalry with them. But it's the frontline, so they're probably going to fight infantry. So he should have had something a little bit more damaging than those Spearmen. Because honestly, they are really quite terrible. Even against anti-large, they're not great. So he could have gone for a few regular skeletons maybe. And then just a couple of Spearmen if he was really worried about that cav trying to get him. But I think the regular skeletons would have done a bit more than those skeleton spearmen did. They're not much better, but they're still more designed for taking on other infantry. Other than that, I think it's alright. He's got the 2 Blood Knights, a good choice for taking on the Bretonnian cav. He had the bats for chasing after the missiles, a good move with those. He had those 2 Direwolves. Again, not a bad pick. Maybe you only need 1 unit of Direwolves though, because Bretonnia doesn't tend to have a ton of missiles, so 1 might have done the job. You could have put the money into some more better frontline units or something, but not a bad build overall, like I said. Only that front line that maybe could have used some adjustments. Could have maybe switched out one of these Direwolves. Extra money from getting rid of that spell. You could have got more cavalry. An extra unit of Black Knights. They could have gone after those archers. They could have hammer and anviled the back of those men-at-arms. That could have helped out the front line a lot. So maybe just needed a little bit more mobility to be able to go and help out his front line, because most of it was concentrated on that one side trying to deal with all the cav and the hippogriffs. And that was a pretty tough fight. You could even go for something like this and just bring a whole bunch of zombies and go super cheap on your front line. You don't really need to try and take out that Bretonnian front line immediately. They are pretty weak themselves, so even just zombies holding them there while you take out all the strong units of the Bretonnians might have been a better call. You could throw in some stronger infantry though. The Stearnsmen regenerating Graveguard, they could take out a couple of units of men-at-arms. You could just get a couple of normal Graveguard. They'd be able to slap those men-at-arms around. So you had some different options, I think, that could have been more effective against those Bretonnian front lines, which aren't very dangerous, so you don't need to like go all out on your front line unless you want to try and break it super quick. But you could try and bring, maybe not a whole front line of Graveguard. It's probably too expensive for this build because you're going to have too small of an army. You could bring a couple of skeletons instead, but that's not great either. I think I'd stick with the zombies if I was going to try and bring some Graveguard. Mostly go for zombies, a couple of Graveguard just to hold the line till your cavalry and your Terrorgeist and your Lord can get over there to help out all those frontline units. That maybe could have been a better way to go for him, because Skeleton Spearmen really are, well, just clown balls. So not very good, not really going to get a lot done in any situation. Even though they're anti-large, like I said, they're not that good at their job. Hence why the vampire count struggles so much with large targets very often. But there we go. There was the vampire counts versus Bordelot. Thanks to Skullkid for sending me the replay. If you'd like to send me a replay of your first multiplayer battle or any multiplayer battle which you lost and you can't figure out why you lost and you'd like to know why and you'd like me to take a look, send it to me on Discord. Link is in the description. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.